They say life is a race. But what happens when you're too small, too scared, and too late to even start? This is the story of a baby sparrow named Sky, a story that reminds us sometimes winning isn't about being the fastest. It's about never giving up on your own flight. Once in a peaceful little kingdom called Evervale, the royal gardens were full of life. Tall trees, golden sunlight, and the soft songs of birds filled the air. Among them lived a family of sparrows, tucked safely in a small nest near the palace wall. The youngest among them was Sky, a tiny baby sparrow with feathers still gray and soft. Sky was smaller than all his brothers and sisters. While they learned to fly early, he could barely flap his wings. Every morning his mother would say lovingly, "Don't worry, Sky. Every bird flies in its own time." But Sky, he didn't believe it. He'd watch the others soar across the garden and whisper to himself, "Maybe I'll never fly." One bright morning, the king of Evervale stood on his balcony watching the birds in the sky. He smiled and said to his minister, "Look at them. Even the smallest creatures compete to touch the heavens. That's how life should be, full of courage." The minister nodded. The king decided to hold a Birds' Flight Day, a celebration where all birds in the garden would race across the sky, from the royal tower to the forest's edge. The winner would be crowned the Spirit of the Sky. When Sky heard this, his heart jumped. He wanted to join. He wanted to prove that even a weak bird could do something great. But when he told his family, they laughed softly. "Oh, Sky," said his brother, "you can't even fly to the next branch." His mother smiled sadly. "Maybe next year, little one." Sky turned away, his tiny eyes shining with tears. That night, as the moon glowed over the garden, he whispered, "Maybe I can't win the race, but I can at least try to fly." The next morning, before anyone woke up, Sky stood at the edge of the nest. The ground looked so far below. His heart pounded. He spread his wings, tried to flap, and fell right into the soft grass below. He got up, trembling. His little body hurt. He looked up at the nest. It felt miles away. But something inside him whispered, "If I give up now, I'll never see the sky." Day after day, Sky kept trying. He'd climb a rock, jump, fall, and try again. The palace guards would sometimes watch and smile. "That little one's got spirit," they'd say. His feathers grew stronger. His wings stopped shaking. And though he still couldn't fly far, Sky learned something precious. He was no longer afraid of falling. Finally, the Birds' Flight Day arrived. The palace courtyard was filled with birds, colorful, graceful, confident. Eagles, doves, robins, sparrows, all ready to soar. And in the corner, standing quietly on a stone, was Sky. Everyone laughed. "Look, the tiny one came to watch." But Sky said softly, "No, I came to race." The royal minister smiled at his courage. "Very well," he said. "Every bird has the right to try." The king raised his hand. "On my count," he declared, "fly." The air filled with flapping wings. The sky turned alive. And Sky jumped. At first, he went down, but then he flapped harder, harder, until the air finally caught him. For the first time, Sky was flying. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't even close. But as he moved through the air, wind rushing past his feathers. His heart shouted, "I'm doing it! I'm flying!" Halfway through the race, a sudden storm rolled in. Strong winds tossed the smaller birds around. Some turned back, some hid in the trees. Sky was terrified. His tiny wings fought the heavy air. Lightning flashed, rain hit his face. He thought, I can't do this." But then he remembered his mother's words, "Every bird flies in its own time." And he whispered, "My time is now." With all his strength, he flapped through the wind. Slowly, painfully, he reached the finish line. Last one across, but still, he finished. When the king saw him, drenched and shaking, he smiled proudly. He said, "This little one may have come last, but today he's taught us what courage really means." The king lifted Sky gently and declared, "From this day, this sparrow shall be called the brave one of Evervale." Days later, when the sun returned and the skies were calm again, Sky stood on a high branch. He looked at the horizon where he once dreamed of flying. He smiled and whispered, "I may be small, but I was never weak." Then he spread his wings and soared, higher than he ever had before. In the race of life, we all start at different times, in different ways. Some fly fast, some fall and rise again. But the real victory isn't about who reaches first. It's about having the courage to keep going, even when the world says you can't. Because in the end, the bravest souls are not the ones who win the race, but the ones who dare to run it, no matter how late they start.